Hello everyone and welcome to my summer update. I cannot believe we're halfway through the year already. Goodness me, there's been some changes this year, hasn't there? The market is fairly turbulent still in my view. So this is how I see it. I'm sure some of you may not agree with me, but I'm speaking from the cold face, as it were, because I'm on this every day of the year. Every day of the year. So where are we at the moment? Well, I'll tell you where we are. We're in the wine rack, which is my development of 150 flats I did nearly 2 years ago now. We completed a 26 million project. The reason we're here is this is the very last flat to sell. So a few months ago I had 5 or 6 flats left. This last 3 weeks I've sold them all. So the good news is that there's one left for someone to buy, but the fact that I've sold the other 5. So the market has dramatically improved in the last month. Our estate agencies, which we have in Norfolk, have dramatically improved as well. Now, that's really good news for everybody. The first time buyer market has even gone up. 4% more people are buying houses for the first time this year than last year, which I really find difficult to understand, but there we go, especially when you think what interest rates have done. So on the normal residential market, things have improved. It is price sensitive, but things have improved. And if you put property on at the right money in the first place and take advice from the estate agent, you should be okay. So that's really good news. People are starting to move home. Whether it's because they're getting used to interest rates as they are, or just fed up with waiting, who knows? But the question is it going to continue for the rest of the year? And I have a big question mark whether it will or not. And the reason I've got that question mark on the residential market is because so many people are paying double or treble what they were paying for their mortgage last year. So there's 1.4 million people more this year to go yet who are going to come out of a fixed rate to a variable rate. And those variable rates are anything from sort of, 5% to 7, 8%. And some of these people have been paying 1 or 2%. The latest stats say that people's income, net income per month, they're going to be spending up to 30% on their mortgage alone. That's up from 20% a few years ago, last year, year before. Now that doesn't seem that much to me, I have to say. I thought it'd be even higher than that. What you have to remember with these mortgage rates is that they were all tested at 5.5%. So they were stress tested at 5.5% when they took those mortgages out. So most people who have still got their jobs, who have got a mortgage, should be able to cope just about with the rate they're paying. Some are paying more than that, so but it's an average, isn't it? But of course, what it does do, everyone will pay their mortgage first, but it does affect everything else that's going on in the economy. Less coffees being bought, less holidays presumably, although I went to the airport the other day to fly to my 2 developments in Scotland I'm doing, and it was packed, so perhaps that's not the case. Now, let's talk about what's going to happen to interest rates. A couple of months ago, people were saying they didn't think they were going to go much higher than they are now. Now, most people seem to be agreeing that they're going to go to 5%, maybe 5.25% in the coming months. So everything is being pushed back. So all the good news really is being pushed back month after month after month. And that's what concerns me with the market towards the back end of this year, when I thought things would improve dramatically at the back end of this year. I'm now thinking actually they've improved a bit sooner than I thought, but because interest rates are going to be high by the end of the year and aren't going to start coming down probably till next year, I think things on that side of it could get very tough. Now, there's really 2 other distinctive areas of property, I think, which is property investment, where we have a number of buy-to-let landlords who are in serious trouble because their interest rates have gone up dramatically. The rents have gone up, I accept that, maybe 15-20%, but nowhere near as much as the rents have. And of course, a lot of these building societies and lending institutions have changed their criteria. So they might have been lending up to 70% loan to value. That criteria may have changed to 60%. So some of these landlords may be having to put cash back in order to comply with the banking mandate. Now, if you can't do that, you put them on the market and sell them. And that's what we're finding, is that a lot of investment property, a lot of property that was occupied has now become empty and is on the market. In the short term, that's not good for the rental market or the housing market in general. But over a long period of time, of course, if they're converted from being rental properties to first-time buyer properties, for instance, and they're sold to a first-time buyer, it doesn't make a lot of difference. The stock is still there, but in the short term, it doesn't look good, and it causes much more pressure on the letting market, of course. The other thing is the developments, the new build boys and girls. They are struggling because there aren't enough people putting a deposit down to buy a property before it started, and pre-sales, in other words. And if you haven't got pre-sales, as one of the big house builders don't have pre-sales, they don't build, because they don't want to be left with millions and millions of pounds worth of property sat there doing nothing. So the pre-sales in London have gone down from 70% to 40% this year. And I think it's only 40% because there's still some foreign investors buying. So that's made a huge difference, and the landlords, potential landlords, have made a big difference to that, because they were buying off plan, now they're not. First-time buyers don't tend to buy off plan because it's not going to be built for 18 months probably, or a year. So they normally more of a hurry than that. So that's a big problem. Big problem, especially in London, where the general market has definitely improved as well as has the rest of the country. But for house builders, it's still very tricky out there. And people like Persimmon Homes, as I said, I think before, last year they built 15,000 houses. This year they're talking about building 9,000 now. They brought that up from 8,000. So it has got slightly better, but it's still very tough for the house builders. Funding property deals is becoming more of a challenge every day, and I can speak about that from personal experience. These bridges and these banks are changing their lending criteria downwards. In other words, they'll lend you less than they would have done before because interest rates have gone up, and they're charging more for doing so as well. Even some of the quite well-known banks across the UK are now, when you add it all up, they're at 10-11%. And it's very hard to make money when you're borrowing the money, the main source of your money, the main bulk of your money, at 10, 11, 12%. And in fact, when you add, for some bridges especially, when you add in a fee up front for taking out the loan and a fee at the end for paying it back, why you need to pay a fee for paying it back, you'd think the bank will be grateful to get the money back. But anyway, that's another story. You're up to nearly 15%. Now that is serious. You cannot afford to be messing around, not getting on with the development straight away if you're paying that sort of interest. So if you're looking for development finance, especially development finance, then be very careful. Make sure you get everything organised before you take the money, because if you're sat there with the scheme for 6-12 months before you can start it because you haven't got preconditions dealt with or anything else, that's really eating into your profit now. And these banks are changing their criteria at the last moment. I've just had that on a scheme. Luckily I was able to put more cash in, but not everybody can do that. So it's a tricky situation. And on the buy-to-lets, it's even trickier, because unless you're putting 50% down on a long-term investment, be it a house that you want to rent out or a block of flats, there's no way it stacks up anymore. So you've got to put 50% in for the bank to be able to be happy to put the other 50% in on the loan. And that's really messing people up, you can imagine, because they might, if they haven't got 50% to put down, forget it. That buy-to-let market is finished. And of course, that's really important, because when you're doing a development, the one question I ask the agent who's selling them for me is this, or my sales director, depending, is this: who are we going to sell these flats or houses to? Where is the market? Where is the demand? Who is going to buy them? And if the investment market is gone, the first time buyer market is a bit better than it was, but it's not great, who else am I selling to? How quickly? The foreign investors are probably gone as well. So you need to probably change the product you're going to produce to fit the market conditions you have now. Now, I think we're all surprised by Rightmove coming out saying that the property market is increasing every month and all the rest of it. They do work their figures out differently to some of the building societies and lending institutions, by the way. That's partly why that is the case. Some take into account the buy-to-let market, some don't, and so on. But interestingly, Scotland is performing better than England, which is handy because I've got 2 developments in Scotland at the moment. I'm looking to buy more, so if you know anybody out there who's got deals in Scotland, I'd be very keen to hear from you. Scotland's running at 5% per annum in terms of increase in average prices, and Wales is 4%. So that's interesting. England's 2.5 or something, but of course there's exceptions to every rule. We all know that. The political scene is important as well, because property and politics are so closely linked, and we've had obviously the local elections where I think the Tories probably did slightly better than they thought they were going to do, and certainly on the doorstep, and I was canvassing on the doorstep, people quite like Rishi Sunak. They think he's doing a decent job, or they think he's a decent person, whereas with Boris they either loved him or hated him. I think with Rishi that is a more consistent message you're getting back from them. Michael Gove, who's the Housing Secretary, has had his reins pulled in, as it were. So with the Renters Reform Bill, which is going through Parliament at the moment, there was all sorts of talk about him banning landlords from being able to sell their properties vacant because it had a tenant in it, and so on and so on and so on. By the looks of things, looking at the white paper that's currently out at the moment, it looks like most of that has been watered down, thank goodness, because as it stood, what was going to happen was the landlords could not legally get vacant possession of their tenanted investment to sell it if the tenant wished to stay. That looks like that isn't the case, and it's a normal 2 months to get your tenant out. And it makes a huge difference, because if you can't get your tenant out and you're selling it as an investment, you could be selling it for 30% less than it's worth on the open market. And also on the open market, you've got the whole market, 100% of the market to sell to, whereas if it's investment, you're probably down to 10% of the market who would be interested in buying an investment. So that's really, really important. It's not law yet, and things might change further. Of course, if Labour get in next year, they'll toughen up these rules even further. But there's nothing too much to worry about in the Renters Bill at the moment. So my prediction for the next 3 months is probably we've got the summer, sun's out, everyone feels a bit better. I think sales will carry on improving slightly over the next 3 months. I think once we get into autumn, things will get much tougher again. Interest rates will be even higher, and I think you have to assume that the market will get tougher and the amount of sales will decrease. So as the saying goes, make hay while the sun shines.